Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's time for the Malzberg panel. Yes, indeed, and joining the panel once again in a repeat performance from last hour is our friend Bill Hoffmann of Newsmax, and of course Seton Motley joins us, founder of Less Government. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Hey there.
Thank you, sir.
All right, just had a very interesting and fun interview with Kevin Sorbo, the great actor. And I want to explore this all a little bit more. And he's in a movie right now called God Is Not Dead. And he plays a college professor who goes in, and the first thing he says to his class of philosophy is you have to sign a statement saying that you believe God is dead and non-existent, otherwise you fail the course. And the movie goes from there. And Seton, this is so typical of what happens, because they're at the end of the movie, he said, and the movie comes out on March 21st, but at the end of the movie, there are credits that run with cases, like about, I forgot what he said, 50, 100 cases, where there are similar instances that have actually happened on college campuses. The court cases that have resulted from them are listed in the credits. And, I have a 14-year-old son. You hold your breath. You wonder what kind of classes, what kind of university am I going to send my kid to, knowingly or unknowingly?
I was just shocked because I thought it was on the college application process, that question. Not for any singular course. No, I'm a little bit of a whack when it comes to, I hated school. I walked out of preschool and walked home. But I did not want to go to college. And my parents and I fought about it a lot. Christmas break, my senior year of high school, and I went, and it was a waste of my time and their money. One of the books I'm going to write is College is for Dummies. And look, this is nothing new. William F. Buckley broke onto the scene in 1954 with the book God and Man at Yale, talking about how leftist and secular Yale was in 1954. It's only gotten worse since then, because since then we've had the 60s revolution where the students took over campuses. I'm looking at you, Eric Holder. And armed resistance to their education masters, and so yeah, it's a ginormous waste of time and money, and it's gotten more and more expensive, and we're funding our enemies, because that's where all those 60s radicals went to hide from reality, was on college campuses.
And Bill, I mean, you're a movie guy and all that, and sticking to the college part of it. I mean, David Horowitz has done such great work on exposing what goes on at universities. We have young kids come on who have had their free speech stifled. There are zones where you can say something and you can't say something, and for fear of offending someone. And if you offend someone, you get kicked out of school. I mean, it's kind of not the college that you and I went to. I'm assuming you went. I went to Brooklyn College. Not that I loved it back in the late 70s, and I think it was a little different anyway.
Yeah, I think it's different than it is today. But I got to say that possibly where sometimes adults make a little bit more hay of this than students do. I remember, when I think back to my college days now, I think of the parties I went to and the various things I did outside of school. I think in some ways college is more of a learning experience, or rather a living experience and learning experience in some ways. You're out on your own for the first time, and I think maybe
unless you left preschool and walked home like Seton did, then it's a whole different story. But let's talk about the movies now, and let's talk about and Bill, you are as up on movies as probably much more so than I am. But interesting to hear from Kevin Sorbo when I asked him about the resurgence in these kinds of movies and why he feels that these conservative movies, these movies that talk about God and religion, why they're making a comeback. And he thought the starting point was Blind Side, or the springboard to the most recent ones was the Blind Side.
Right. Well, I think that these sort of movies go in cycles. Like every once in a while a film comes out and it strikes a chord. Like back in the 70s you had George Burns and Oh God, which then was a huge success. And over the next year or so, there were a number of pictures, Christian and faith-oriented pictures, made a lot of money, and then things sort of die out. There are a couple of bombs, and you see it go nowhere. So then it takes like 5-10 years off. But we're in a cycle now with Son of God and with Kevin's picture and everything like that. So I think you're going to see a number of these faith-based pictures doing very, very well in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and Seton, it's very cyclical because we've seen a lot of liberal, left-wing, nut job type movies that have bombed. At the same time, we've seen a resurgence in these conservative, religious-themed movies or family-oriented movies that have taken off. So hopefully that's something that will perpetuate.
Well, again, you make the point, and of course, The Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson's movie did, blew everyone's doors off. He couldn't get it made, so he made it himself, basically. You're right. What'll happen is they'll make one as a flyer, and if it makes money, they'll make one more, and they're just waiting with great distaste for the first failure, and then they'll stop. Meanwhile, they'll make 55. Hangover 9 will be made, even though Hangovers 8 through 4 didn't make any money, because they don't mind screwing up as long as it's as long as it's in their wheelhouse of cultural taste and style.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, and it's a shame because we've heard from many actors. I mean, and he also weighed in on the political climate in this country, and he also was very honest and forthright. And Kevin Sorbo was Bill, when he talked about how he has liberal friends who said, I'm going to vote, liberal actor friends who said, I'm going to vote for Obama because it'll be cool to have a black guy in the White House. And yet when he said, I'm not going to vote for Obama, and didn't reference race, they called him a racist. And it all feeds into the kind of climate we're in right now in this country.
Well, there's an interesting climate in Hollywood right now, where you have your basic liberal core, but slowly but surely there is a conservative core, as you can see with Dinesh D'Souza and others coming out. That there is a conservative core which we didn't really know about, which is finally speaking out, which I think is something we're going to be seeing more of in the next.
Yes, Seton. I mean, that story that I just told, that Kevin told. That's I think it's permeating Hollywood. It's beyond that. You're afraid. He said you're afraid to speak out because you're afraid you might be audited. I mean, we live in a very troubling time.
These are the same people who freak out about the HUAC committees in the 50s.
Right.
And this is much worse than that. But I will point out that there's a political lesson that applies here. When you start building a grassroots effort, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years. And I'd point to the Friends of Abe in Hollywood, which started in the late 90s and started to grow and grow and grow. And maybe it's reaching that density point where it's a little less career killing to speak out conservatively in Hollywood than it would have been 10 or 15 years ago. And movies like this can be made with somewhat more frequency. Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns, did ask Obama one question. As you pointed out, he didn't mention the fact that the president was black and he was called a racist. When Galifianakis asked him, what's it like to be the last black president?
Yeah.
That might be foretelling based upon the performance of the first black president.
Well, I'll take certainly a conservative president if he's black or she's black.
I'll vote for Thomas Sowell yesterday, please.
What's that?
I'll vote for Thomas Sowell yesterday, please.
Yeah. By the way, the Friends of Abe, the conservative Hollywood group that you talked about, I should point out I got an email from them yesterday that they've received their tax-exempt status, which is something that they had been looking for I think 3 years now, and they believe that they were being unfairly denied. So they have received that status. Hey, Seton and Bill, a pleasure to talk to both of you again. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. That's the Malzberg panel, ladies and gentlemen. So coming up at the bottom of the hour, after the next break, we're going to be joined by Mike Boyd. He's president of Boyd Group International. He's an aviation expert, an investigator, and we're going to put all these questions that I have, which maybe there's some of the same questions you have, to him, and try to pick his brain as to what could have happened to this plane. Could it be used down the road if it landed as a weapon? And should people be afraid of that? Okay, so we're coming back right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, and you know where it is, Newsmax Television.
The Steve Malzberg Show.